The atmosphere in the courtroom was suffocating. Judge Charles Hargrove's eyes burned with contempt as he looked down from his elevated seat, his tone razor-sharp and icy. "Remove it. That cross around your neck is causing a disruption. It has no place in this chamber." Without a moment's hesitation, he imposed a $500 penalty on her, sending waves of disbelief through the spectators. Karoline Leavitt stood unwavering in her tailored navy blazer, a silver cross resting against her chest. She didn't protest. She simply acknowledged the fine with a nod and walked toward the exit. The courtroom doors swung shut behind her, but her determination was already building momentum. Outside, beneath Washington's overcast sky, she reached for her phone and dialed her attorney, her voice firm and resolute. "We're taking legal action against him," she declared. "And we're bringing down the entire corrupt system with him." In that instant, something ignited a force that Judge Hargrove would soon regret awakening. He believed a fine would silence her. Instead, he unleashed a movement that would dismantle him and expose a broken institution. Share where you're watching from in the comments and subscribe if you believe faith should never be punished. This battle had only just begun, and Karoline Leavitt was at the forefront. Karoline Leavitt files $800 million lawsuit against corrupt judge. Back at the White House, Karoline Leavitt sat in her office, the silver cross catching the light from above. Her expression was focused, her posture disciplined like a commander strategizing for war. Across from her sat Rachel Harper, a seasoned attorney with a reputation in Washington as the judge hunter. Rachel opened her laptop, fingers flying across the keys as Karoline outlined the strategy with controlled intensity. "We're not only suing Judge Hargrove for defamation," Karoline stated, her voice quiet but fierce. "We're targeting the entire D.C. court system for systematic religious discrimination." Rachel nodded with approval. "An $800 million lawsuit, defamation, First Amendment violations. We'll attack from every direction and push for an expedited trial. The harm to your reputation demands swift action." Within hours, Rachel submitted the lawsuit to federal court. The reaction was immediate and powerful. A federal judge issued an emergency directive. Charles Hargrove had 48 hours to produce all emails, case records, and internal correspondence. No delays, no exceptions. Meanwhile, Karoline's media strategist, Jake Torres, sprang into action. In a dimly lit media operations room several floors below, Jake was already crafting the opening strike. "We need a hashtag that cuts through the noise," Jake said. "Something the public can unite behind." Karoline responded instantly. "Judge on trial." Jake's fingers raced across the keyboard, launching a coordinated campaign across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. By late afternoon, the hashtag had reached #1 on Twitter. Thousands of posts flooded social media showing Karoline standing proudly with her cross, accompanied by captions like "Faith is not a crime" and "No apology, no retreat." Influencers shared audio clips of Hargrove's words, alongside videos of Karoline's composed defiance. The narrative transformed rapidly. It was no longer just Karoline versus Hargrove. It was Karoline representing every American who had ever been silenced because of their beliefs. The battle was officially underway. Karoline Leavitt exposes shocking judicial conspiracy. Inside the D.C. court system, anxiety simmered beneath the surface. News was spreading that Judge Charles Hargrove's empire was beginning to crumble. And it started with an unexpected whistleblower. Ethan Brooks, a young IT technician with access to the court's internal servers, had seen enough. Late one night, while reviewing hundreds of emails, he discovered incriminating exchanges between Hargrove and another senior figure, Judge Ellen Carver. The emails weren't mere complaints. They revealed a calculated conspiracy. Carver advised Hargrove to target her faith aggressively and discredit her cross before it gains momentum. One chilling message from Hargrove read, "The cross has no place in our courtrooms. Attack it publicly and privately." Ethan didn't hesitate. He compiled the emails, encrypted the files, and sent them directly to Karoline Leavitt's team using an anonymous account. Within minutes, Karoline had the evidence in hand. Sitting at her desk beneath the warm glow of her lamp, she reviewed the documents, her expression hardening with each sentence. She didn't waste time. Jake Torres, always ready at the Media Command Center, prepared a public statement. Within an hour, the damning emails were circulating across Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. A viral video overlaid excerpts from Hargrove's emails with footage of Karoline's defiant courtroom moment, punctuated by the message, "He tried to silence her faith. Now he faces the people." As the storm intensified online, reinforcements arrived. Linda Martinez, a veteran judicial investigator known for exposing corruption from coast to coast, officially joined the case. Linda wasn't just searching for misconduct, she was building a case to destroy it. Within days, Linda uncovered something even more damaging: Hargrove's secret black file buried deep in the D.C. court archives. It was a comprehensive dossier meticulously documenting over 250 cases involving religious symbols, prayer pins, crosses, headscarves, targeted with excessive fines or courtroom bans. 80% of the violations had been imposed on Christians. It wasn't coincidence. It was policy, an unwritten rule enforced by one man's prejudice. Meanwhile, inside the courthouse, whispers turned into quiet rebellion. Miss Thompson, a senior court clerk who had worked under multiple judges, discreetly contacted Karoline's legal team. Through a series of private meetings, she provided notes and photocopies of internal communications confirming Hargrove's selective targeting of religious expression while ignoring genuinely inappropriate conduct from others. Officer James Wilson, a respected veteran of courthouse security, followed suit. In a late-night phone conversation, he recalled witnessing Hargrove fine an elderly man for carrying a Bible while overlooking protesters wearing vulgar slogans into courtrooms. "It wasn't about maintaining order," Wilson said quietly. "It was about suppressing faith." The walls closed in around Hargrove with each passing hour. Inside his office, the once arrogant judge sat hunched at his desk, watching social media explode with devastating headlines and brutal memes. His portrait, once displayed prominently outside courtroom 5C, had been quietly removed after protesters began leaving prayer cards beneath it. Outside the courthouse, crowds grew. Signs reading "Faith is not a crime" and "We stand with Karoline" filled the streets. Parents, pastors, students, and veterans chanted in unison. The energy was unmistakable, electric. Hargrove's panic turned desperate. He frantically called Ellen Carver late one evening, his voice breaking. "They're coming after us, Ellen. We need to stop this now." But Carver, sensing the noose tightening around her own career, responded coldly and distantly. "You're on your own now, Charles," she said before hanging up. Inside the White House, Karoline met with Rachel Harper and Jake Torres, outlining the next phase. "We have the black file. We have the emails. We have the witnesses. Now we go for complete exposure," Karoline said, her voice unwavering. As midnight approached, Jake released the next bombshell across social media. Images of the black file's cover page, showing a handwritten note from Hargrove: "Keep faith symbols out. Maintain authority." By morning, the hashtag #JudgeOnTrial had surpassed 500,000 mentions. News anchors on Fox News, Newsmax, and even reluctant voices on CNN began acknowledging the undeniable. Karoline Leavitt wasn't just winning a lawsuit. She was dismantling a corrupt wall brick by brick, and Judge Charles Hargrove could feel the ground crumbling beneath him. Just when it seemed the fire surrounding Judge Charles Hargrove couldn't burn any hotter, Linda Martinez made a discovery that would trigger a political earthquake. Digging deeper into the court's encrypted archives, Linda's team unearthed a cache of hidden communications messages between Hargrove and none other than Senator Daniel Clay, a fierce anti-Trump figure known for his aggressive tactics against conservative leaders. The emails weren't vague. They were explicit. Clay's directives were clear. Target Karoline Leavitt. Destroy her credibility. Undermine her before the election cycle begins. Hargrove's responses revealed enthusiasm, not reluctance. One reply read, "Understood. Faith is her armor. We'll make it her weakness." Linda immediately forwarded the documents to Rachel Harper. Within minutes, Rachel, Jake Torres, and Karoline herself gathered around a table in the White House, analyzing every line. Karoline's fists clenched, but her voice remained calm. "They didn't just attack me. They attacked everyone who believes faith still belongs in America." Jake didn't waste a second. He launched the bombshell on Twitter and TikTok. Screenshots of the Clay-Hargrove emails appeared over footage of Karoline standing proudly with her cross in court. The caption read, "They tried to silence her. Now they answer to all of us." The internet erupted. Like Judge on Trial, Faith Over Corruption, and Stand With Karoline trended within an hour. Memes flooded every platform. Protesters surged outside the D.C. courthouse, their chants shaking the marble steps. Faith is freedom. Hargrove must go. Some carried crosses. Others waved American flags. The energy was no longer just a ripple. It was a tidal wave. Inside the courthouse, Hargrove's world spiraled out of control. But it was too late. Linda's forensic team had already created copies of the hard drive. Every deletion only added to the growing mountain of evidence. Meanwhile, Karoline's public image transformed dramatically. No longer seen merely as the young woman fined for her faith, she was now a powerful symbol of resistance, an immovable force standing against systematic judicial corruption. News outlets, even skeptical ones, began to acknowledge the obvious. Karoline had become the face of a movement no one could stop. Jake worked overtime coordinating viral videos showing Karoline speaking calmly under pressure, holding up court documents, facing down a system that tried to crush her. Clips of her courtroom confrontation played on loop alongside stirring patriotic music, turning Karoline into a household name. Parents showed their children her speeches. Churches held prayer services in her honor. Veterans posted photos of themselves saluting her image. The protests outside the D.C. courthouse swelled from hundreds to thousands. Streets filled with banners reading, "We believe in freedom, stop judicial tyranny, and Karoline stands, we stand." Reporters struggled to capture the magnitude of it all. Politicians scrambled to comment, either embracing the wave or fleeing for cover. Even international outlets began covering the story, dubbing it America's Faithquake. Judge Hargrove, trapped by his own arrogance, watched his allies abandon him one by one. Ellen Carver refused to return his calls. Court officers avoided eye contact when he passed. His own clerks, once deferential, whispered behind closed doors. His wife moved out. His son posted on Twitter, "Ashamed of what my father has become." In a final act of desperation, Hargrove reached out to political contacts for help, but doors that were once open slammed shut in his face. No one wanted to be associated with a man who had not only weaponized the bench, but had now been exposed as a puppet for political power. Inside the White House, Karoline stood by the windows overlooking the National Mall, watching thousands rally in her name. Rachel Harper approached, handing her the latest court update. The federal investigation into Hargrove's conduct had been formally launched. Criminal charges for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to violate civil rights, and destruction of evidence were now imminent. Karoline closed her eyes briefly, letting the weight of the moment settle. This wasn't just about her cross. It wasn't even just about her rights. It was about a broken system being dragged into the light, kicking and screaming. Rachel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just fight back, Karoline. You're rewriting history." Karoline opened her eyes, steady as steel. The internet exploded with a force no one could have predicted. Within hours of the encrypted emails and courtroom footage going public, the hashtag Judge on Trial skyrocketed past 300,000 mentions. It wasn't just political circles talking anymore. Celebrities, faith leaders, veterans, small-town mayors. Everyone seemed to be rallying behind Karoline Leavitt. Clips of Karoline confronting Judge Hargrove filled every major platform. TikTok feeds blazed with montages of her standing tall, pointing directly at him, her voice thundering, "You betrayed justice." Twitter users created viral threads documenting the entire timeline of events, hailing Karoline as a modern-day Joan of Arc. Instagram reels showed her walking confidently into the courtroom, head high, cross gleaming, under captions like "Faith over Fear." Jake Torres, ever the strategist, timed the release of a special video compilation, a 2-minute edit showing Karoline holding the damning evidence, Hargrove sweating in panic, and crowds outside chanting for justice. The video surpassed 1 million views in its first hour. It was everywhere. Televisions, laptops, phones, even billboards in Times Square, flashing faith over corruption. Inside the White House, Karoline's phone buzzed insistently. "Karoline," Trump's voice rumbled through the speaker, strong and unmistakable. "You didn't just win. You made history. America needed this, and you delivered." Karoline thanked him humbly but firmly. She knew the fight wasn't over, but hearing those words from the man she worked so hard to defend solidified everything she had risked. Meanwhile, Hargrove's world collapsed in real time. His wife filed for separation, releasing a terse statement to the press. "I cannot stand beside someone who would disgrace the bench he swore to uphold." His son, a young lawyer, posted bluntly on Twitter, "My father's actions dishonored our family name. I disavow them." News outlets struggled to keep pace. Fox News ran non-stop coverage, showing Karoline's confrontation on a loop with the banner, "Leavitt sparks national faith awakening." Sean Hannity declared, "She's not just fighting for Trump, she's fighting for all Americans who believe in faith and freedom." Even CNN, initially cautious, couldn't ignore the wildfire. Anchors tried to frame it as a political stunt, but each time they played footage of Karoline's calm, powerful courtroom stance, their attempts to downplay her backfired. Viewers could see the truth with their own eyes. Commentators reluctantly admitted that no matter how they spun it, Karoline had captured the hearts and the outrage of the nation. On Twitter, one viral post summed it up perfectly. A side-by-side photo of Karoline and Judge Hargrove. Over Karoline, the words, "Corruption falls." It gained 500,000 likes in under 2 hours. In churches across America, pastors wove Karoline's story into sermons. "We need more warriors like her," one preacher declared. Parents told their children about her courage. Veterans saluted her on social media. Small towns organized prayer vigils. Big cities saw rallies outside courthouses demanding judicial reform. The federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. was packed beyond capacity. Reporters jostled for space, influencers live-streamed from the marble steps, and protesters outside waved signs reading, "Faith over Fear" and "Stand with Karoline." The atmosphere was electric. History was about to be made. Inside, the courtroom fell silent as Karoline Leavitt and her legal team stepped forward. Rachel Harper, sharp and unyielding as ever, presented the arsenal they had assembled. Hargrove's black file documenting 250 cases of anti-religious bias, the conspiracy emails between Judge Hargrove and Senator Daniel Clay, and the whistleblower testimonies from Ethan Brooks and Miss Thompson. One by one, the pieces were laid bare for the world to see. When it came time for Judge Hargrove to take the stand, the collapse was swift and devastating. Under sharp cross-examination, his arrogance melted into panic. Rachel held up the damning emails, reading aloud the chilling line, "Target her cross. It'll throw them into chaos." Sweat beading on his forehead, Hargrove stammered, trying to deny intent. But when confronted with the encrypted messages retrieved by Linda Martinez's team, his facade shattered. Judge Amelia Ruiz wasted no time. Slamming her gavel, she issued a blistering ruling. Not only did Karoline Leavitt win her $800 million lawsuit, but the federal court mandated sweeping reforms across the D.C. judicial system. Religious symbols could no longer be fined unless they disrupted proceedings, and every judge would now be required to undergo rigorous First Amendment training. Karoline Leavitt turns $500 fine into a movement for justice. Under the gray skies of Geneva, Switzerland, Charles Hargrove hid behind the thick walls of a rented villa, using an alias few even recognized. Once a man of power in Washington, he was now reduced to a fugitive mocked across the world. Social media plastered his image with captions like "The Judge Who Ran" and "Coward in Exile." No country, no courtroom could erase the shame that followed him. Now thousands of miles away, in Freedom Park, back in Washington, D.C., Karoline Leavitt stood before a crowd of Americans waving signs and crosses high into the air. The energy buzzed like electricity, chants of faith winds rising to the heavens. In her hands, she held a simple wooden frame, a relic from the battle she had just won. Inside the frame was the $500 fine that started it all, now a symbol of resistance, resilience, and ultimate victory. She lifted it high, and the crowd erupted in cheers that echoed across the park. Karoline's eyes gleamed, but her voice stayed steady as she spoke. "He thought he could silence my faith," she said, her tone fierce yet full of hope. "Instead, he taught us all to stand taller." The sun broke through the clouds, bathing the crowd in golden light, as if sealing the moment into history. He thought he could silence her faith. Instead, she rewrote the future. Karoline smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, and the joy of a movement just beginning to take flight. "If you believe courage still matters," her voice rang out over the roar of the crowd. "Like, comment, and subscribe. More The Black Stories coming soon." And with that, a new chapter of hope and justice was written under the open American sky.